try to get through this one. Try to survive the onslaught today. Maybe this could help. I know I've played this one on stream before, but I like doing this one to start. It just warms up my voice nice and purty like. Maybe it could use a tune-up, actually. Gotta tune it up first. Then I'm gonna play it nice and pretty like for you. How about that? Catch me outside, how about that? Ah! Since I factory resetted my phone, I don't have my tuner anymore. Connor 074, guitar time. Guitar tuner. I have to download the app again. This one. There we go. This is the one I liked. Yeah, I did a factory reset on my phone, and my mom was like, yeah, you gotta do that, you know, and nothing will happen. You'll get your data back. What could go wrong? Well, Milo Murphy's Law states that what can go wrong will go wrong. What the heck? This ain't the tuner? What are you doing? There we go. That's the tuner. What was that? Alright. Favorite song to play on guitar? Boy, I wanted to ride a guitar since I was a zygote! God, what is my favorite one? Favorite one to play? I guess it depends. That's amazing. That's amazing. It depends. It depends. Well, right now I'm gonna play this one. Because I like... This one has a nice chord progression that's fun to play, and it just warms up my voice. Well, it's gentle on my voice to start. When I've done my work of day, and I row my boat away down the waters of Loch Tay, when the evening light is falling, and I look towards Ben Lars, where the after-glories glow, and I dream on two bright eyes with a merry mouth below. She's my beauteous Nian Rock, she's my joy and sorrow too, and although she is not true, but I cannot live without her, for my heart's a boat in tow, and I'd give the world to know why she means to let me go, as I sing hurry-hurro. Nian Roch, your lovely hair has more beauty, I declare, than all the tresses fair, from Killen to Aberfeldy, be they lint white, brown, or gold, be they blacker than the sloe, they have no more worth to me than
lake of snow, and her eyes were like the gleam of the sunlight o'er the stream, and the songs the fairies sing sound like the songs she sings at milking. But my heart is full of woe, for last night she bade me go, and the tears began to flow as I sing hurry-hurro.
Oh, I can't hear very well with my earbuds in. I can't hear my guitar very well. And then I've been doing that, the one I learned from Andy M. Stewart.
I am a rambling Irishman, it's Ulster I was born in, and many's the happy hour I've spent on the banks of sweet Loch Erin. But to be poor I could not endure, like others of my station. To America I sailed away, and left this Irish nation right tan-tan-na, tan-tan-na, right tan-tan-na-nur, tan-tan-na, 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 right tan-tan-nur, tan-tan-na.
I'm just beginning to learn that one. I've only played it like once. Maybe twice, actually. And then, of course, Nikita Khrushchev. I've been playing that one a bunch. Holy mo, my father loves Nikita Khrushchev, holy moly me. He loves Nikita Khrushchev, holy moly me. Didn't he, ya, didn't he, ya, didn't he, ya, didn't he, ya. Didn't he, ya, didn't he, ya, didn't he, ya, didn't he, ya. Don't play it again. One fine day in May, the sun was on the sea. I went for a swim, I took along my bottle, swam among the waves so very calm indeed, and green is all the grass that grows from out the Docky. Swam around Killiney Bay, lovely day, down below I see a couple of hungry fishes. Then I went along my way, rounding the bay, I thought I'd better say a prayer for dear old daddy. That's a good one. I'm figuring out how to play that one. Don't play it again. Okay, play it again. What's why are you so indecisive? So, I thought for this stream I would give you people a chance to be a little bit interactive. There we go. I have a selection of Sargon of Akkad videos, and I'll have you guys decide which ones you want to which one you want to watch first. I've got We the Unheard. That one's only 13 days old. What's with the question mark? What are you confused about? Hi, Carl. It's nice to see you here. I'm really quite on edge right now. So this is going to be an edgy stream. But anyway, I'm having you decide which Sargon of Akkad video we're going to watch first. We have We the Unheard, that's only 13 days ago. That's a speech, I guess, that he gave. Canadian Goose Shit wants Tradwives. We also have The Revolution Has Begun, and it has a picture of Nigel Farage on it with like a burning building in the background. We have The Right Side of History, TM, which is clearly like he's butthurt about people saying that progressivism is always on the right side of history just because the world keeps getting more progressive and we keep agreeing that progressive values that of the past are now just normal values of today. He's like, that's wrong. That sounded a bit northern. That's wrong. I'm not good at doing Sargon's accent. He has a very kind of gentle English accent. He's not like, take history. That's wrong. And then we have The American Caesar. Now, who could that be about? I don't know. That one's kind of interesting to me. We have The Purpose of Lore and Canon, and it has Saruman communicating with an LGBT Sauron. And then we have Tradwives. So lots of good options to pull from, all of them relatively recent videos that I've not seen before, except for maybe I saw a bit of The Right Side of History. We have one vote for Tradwives. LGTB is lame. Carl 2 says The American Caesar. So we have some disagreement. I think you guys gotta both make your argument for why you want Tradwives versus The American Caesar. Water is lame. Man, I was doing some delivery driving earlier. That's why I'm all on edge. Now, if I had alcohol with me, that would be great. That would hit the spot right now. But I was just on my round of medication yesterday. That was my last day of the week for it. And so I am going to not do that for maybe a couple days. I think let's go for the Tradwives. Well, do you have a reason? Because right now we have one person saying Tradwives, one person saying American Caesar. We don't have a tiebreaker. Unlucky. Politics suck. Okay. Okay, that's a reason. I have one reason. I'll wait a few minutes to see if Carl too has a reason for his. And if not, then we will watch Tradwives. Let's do both. Yes, we'll watch the American Caesar after Tradwives, assuming Carl 2 doesn't have anything. I'll give him 2 more minutes. Tan tanana tan tanana rai tan tananu rananandi tan tanana tan tanana rai tan tananu rananandi. Tradwives could be funny, sure. Okay, we're going with Tradwives then. Tradwives. Tradwives. Oh, shoot. Is it not coming in? It's not coming in. Hold on. I gotta fix it. I gotta fix the audio. I know how to do it this time. This time I actually do know how to do it. There.
Recently, Lauren Southern was interviewed by Mary Harrington for an article entitled Lauren Southern, How My Trad Life Turned Toxic, subtitled The Online Ideology Doesn't Work in the Real World.
Whoa!
And it's quite a strange thing to read.
Coming from her, yeah.
Tradwife is a term which denotes the modern fetishization of the traditional 20th century gender roles in marriage, where the wife is what a normal person calls a housewife, who looks after the home and domestic affairs, and the husband goes to work to make money.
What a normal person calls a housewife. That's kind of true. Like, at this point, like, the term housewife is kind of getting overtaken slowly but surely by tradwife.
As with all things online, the lived act of being part of a married couple is analysed and dissected to death by people who have no first-hand experience of it, formulated then into an ideology, and then someone attempts to craft a real life that resembles the abstract ideal, which appears to be what Lauren did in this case. English professor Michael Oakeshott identified this as the process by which all ideology is created. Someone with no experience abstracts into a technical body of knowledge how they think something is done so it can be learned as a doctrine. The alternative way of learning things is by doing, either discovering as you go or through an apprenticeship, and the advantage to this is that you learn those subtleties through time and effort that cannot be captured in a doctrine. For example, I could learn how to do woodworking in that I need to cut X piece of wood to Y shape, but it wouldn't tell me how to actually do it. That I'd have to figure out on my own. Things such as the amount of force to apply to the wood, what angle to cut at, the kind of muscle exertion that I need to put into the process to get what I want out of it. Tradwife is exactly that, and a lot has been left out of this ideology. I consider myself something of an expert on this, as I am actually living the life that the online singletons are idolizing.
Sargon actually does have a housewife.
My wife and I have 4 children, and she is a full-time mum and housewife. The first thing you learn is that your energy is limited, and often you have to take on whatever work needs doing just to give your other half a break. Children are stressful. They're constantly creating a mess, breaking things, hurting themselves and then crying, or just grizzling because they didn't get enough sleep last night. The house is never properly tidy, and you are rarely rested as well as you'd like to be, but there's not much you can do about it, so you just do the best that you can. I realise I'm not selling it here, but I'm trying to disabuse people of the fantasy life.
Yeah, he's not selling it very well, is he? Sounds like a pretty miserable life.
That online trad influencers craft for themselves. Do you think that this woman's normal day is to be beautiful, have a spotless kitchen, and boundless energy to make all this food? Of course not.
Man,
as with all...
Where there's a will, there's a way. I believe this country belle from the 1920s can keep a perfect home. I mean, just look at that hair. If she keeps that hair every day, then she can keep that home every day, if you know what I'm saying.
All things social media, everything is carefully crafted to create an illusion. However, all of this labour and sacrifice is absolutely worth it. I'm an articulate man, and yet I don't have the words to properly describe the joy of being there while your children take their first wobbly steps and lurch uncertainly towards you, with huge dribbly grins on their year-old faces as they realise they're actually doing it. Another time that sticks in my memory is when my oldest son was trying to ride a bike without stabilizers, and I'd break my back running after him holding the seat to make sure he didn't fall off. But then when he finally got it, his cries of "Daddy, I'm doing it!" will stay with me forever. What I'm saying is, all the work creates a kind of magic that you just can't get in any other way, and the bedrock of this is the teamwork between the husband and wife. You marry because you love each other, and having to manage your lives and kids together provides a bond between you that nobody else has. The character of the relationship is the most intimate knowledge of one another, not in a carnal way, but in a deeper and more spiritual way. You
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking in a carnal way, but okay.
know one another's circadian rhythms. Your lives become predictable and secure like a heartbeat if everyone is doing their best. You attain a kind of love that can't be had elsewhere. There's a good reason that unmarried people online fetishize this otherwise normal and mundane life. This is the good life for the everyman and woman. It's their victory and glory to see their kids grow up and be a success. I've known of Lauren for many years now, and I've met her a few times in real life. She seems to be a lovely person, and I don't know of anyone who has a personal problem with her, although I have to admit I don't know very much about her personal life. I was surprised by Mary Harrington's article, and I would have expected the opposite, but I think a lot of people online have taken Lauren's experience and failed to understand what the actual lesson from this is. As Harrington puts it in the article, the online trad life ideology has distilled a version of these roles that is both rigid and wildly oversimplified, and thus woefully ill-equipped for real life, in ways that pose significant risks
Makes
for
sense,
women
I
in such
guess.
marriages.
I'd like to know the
This
details.
is certainly correct, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's helping the men either. It puts upon them burdens of expectations that they're probably not able to fulfill. And I see the kind of bizarre trad wife fetishization online turn into a kind of cult.
I'm curious to know what the specific details of this are, because here we have paleocons or conservatives who are critical of the trad wife lifestyle as it's been portrayed online because, in their view, it's an unsustainable standard. And that makes it interesting to think, well, what exactly is unsustainable or unrealistic about it, and how can people have better expectations going into this kind of traditional life?
Life that simply can't exist in the pursuit of a purity that can never happen. Put simply, marriage is about compromise. I do a lot of the things my wife does just to make her day easier, and she will do things that I do if my day has also gone badly. The key to a happy marriage is showing the other person that you love and care about them, not robotically fulfilling a formula you have downloaded from the internet. The idea that men and women have rigid roles to stick to is just untrue. They have general roles to fulfill, but these are necessarily flexible because the contingencies of reality must always come first. In the article, Lauren says that she and her husband rushed into this marriage and she got pregnant quickly, and her husband's attitude was somewhat unpredictable and immature. As she says, "If I ever disagreed with him in any capacity, he'd just disappear for days at a time. I remember there were nights where he'd call me worthless and pathetic, then get in his car and leave. I can't imagine ever speaking to my wife in such a way, even when I'm angry with her. One of the reasons that you marry the woman is that she isn't worthless. She is the mother of your children and will help raise them well."
Man, like, sometimes with these people getting married to these people, I'm just like, why did you do that? Why did you do that to yourself? Like, There's no way that I mean, this could have been a good idea going into it. If that early in their marriage, he's already like, you're worthless and pathetic, and then leaving all the time. Like, I mean, come on. You got to have known that was a bad idea before you signed that contract. Yeah. Some of these people, just the getting married to these people who just aren't nice to them. I don't understand why you would do that. Like, surely you would spend enough time with someone to know if they're gonna be nice to you or not.
Another is that she isn't pathetic. She had the dignity worthy of a woman that you would make your wife. She continues, I had this delusional view of relationships, that only women could be the ones to make or break them, and men could do no wrong, so she didn't spot the red flags as they grew more extreme. He'd lock me out of the house. I remember having to knock on the neighbour's door on rainy nights.
That's such a weird view of relationships. Why would you even have that?
It was very strange to go from being this public figure on stage with people clapping to the girl crying and knocking on someone's door with no home to get into, being abandoned with a baby. Now, we only have her side of the story, and so I guess we'll take this with a pinch of salt, just to be fair. But this would of course be unacceptable, and to my mind just bonkers. I would never have locked any of my babies out of the house, no matter how bad.
This is so bizarre. This is a weird article he's reading. I mean, I think the experiment with being a trad wife, like the trad wife aspect of it, wasn't what was wrong here. What was wrong here is the choice of husband. Like, jeez.
The argument I'd had with my wife. And apparently, under pressure from her husband, Lauren left her career behind in 2019 and moved abroad for her husband's career. And she says, I believed I had a certain role in my relationship, and it was to be the more submissive one.
I mean, we always knew that Lauren Southern was a dumbass, but this just cements it. Holy shit. Yeah, she was like she says she's trying to sincerely put into practice the ideology she'd promoted in her videos. But that doesn't mean being an idiot about it. That's the thing, is like, all right, cool. You want to like actually walk the walk that you've been hypocritically crowing about for all these years. But just do it right. Like, even I have no interest in this weird paleocon lifestyle stuff at all, but even I feel kind of offended on the behalf of the people who do, because I'm just like, bro, here we are, you're trash talking the trad lifestyle now, saying that it's like that it fucked you over. But like, normal people I feel like, who get married to nice people, to people who actually like them, don't have this issue. Anyway,
that supports my husband's dreams. This is the kind of language I see a lot in American trad circles, and I think it's worth addressing because it feels like a very American characterization. The term submissive is demeaning, and I personally would never use it towards my own wife. I control our finances and basically have the final say in everything, but that say is usually, yes dear, how much is it? I don't mean to sound like a boomer dad, but that's basically what your money is for. But I would never call my wife submissive, because it implies an unwarranted level of superiority on my part that does not respect her as the boss of her domain. And to be clear, I rely upon her for almost everything domestic. She keeps the house, does the clothes, administers the bills, ferries the kids to school, and ensures that family events are attended, and everything else that she does. She is completely competent, and everything does get done. And a healthy relationship between husband and wife is not one of dominance and submission, but an equal amount of respect and dignity accorded to the two different but important spheres of life, over which each partner is their own master. I don't really get to tell her how to run the house, and she doesn't get to tell me how to do my job. And we're both very happy with this arrangement. Lauren...
This is like Sargon, who, like, he never got into this whole, trad wife, trad husband thing. Like, it was just something that he did because it just happened. It's not like this guy who's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna live a traditional life. Whereas I think a lot of these conservatives, these young conservatives, like Nick Fuentes, who is gay but doesn't want to believe it, they have built it up in their minds, like, oh, I've got to live that perfect traditional way of life. I think for Sargon, it just sort of happened because, he got married, eventually he had some kids, maybe the wife stopped working because it was more convenient for her to be there with the kids, and then boom, so-called traditional. I mean, it just kind of happens with a lot of people. There isn't necessarily an ideology around it. And so I think it's interesting that was the point he was kind of bringing up earlier, is that people make these ideologies out of things that other people just do because it's just the thing that was there for them to do. So I think that makes him have a better perspective on this than the people like Lauren Southern or Nick Fuentes, who like build it up in their minds as like this big important thing, instead of just doing it. Like, Lauren Southern took years for her to finally just fucking do it, just quit her job, which she shouldn't have had to do because it was a great job and she was clearly fulfilled doing it, but I guess she got in trouble for being a racist, so it stopped being fun to her at some point, which I guess makes sense. But like, I don't know, if you're gonna be offended about being called a racist, or if you're gonna like look back in hindsight like, oh, that was horrible, then why'd you do it in the first place? That's how I feel with a lot of this Lauren Southern stuff, like with her marriage falling apart. Like, why did you do it in the first place? Her racist career, oh, people are mad at me now for being a racist, which I always knew I was one. I don't know, it's just like, why did you do it in the first place? And then Nick is like a few months older than I, and he still hasn't gotten married, even though, he's been self-employed for a while. I think he's able to pull together a decent living off of what he does. It's like, wow, are there just not, do no girls want him? Are there no like good Catholic girls who he can date? He just doesn't want to because he's gay. But it's like they talk and talk and talk about this, but a lot of them don't actually do it. And then when they do it, like Lauren, it's a disaster. Whereas someone like Sargon, I think, has a much better perspective on it because he just kind of accidentally did it. We are all trauma living in a house of pain. Jump around, jump around. Psychological condition that keeps someone bound to someone that mistreats them. Trauma bonding. I just don't know why you would get married to someone like that. I understand sticking around, but the marriage part I don't get. Like, alarm bells should be going off in her head. All right, next we have American Caesar.
It is apparent to the electorates of the West that something is happening that is outside of their control. Across the West and the world more broadly, it is becoming evident that there is something wrong with democracy. Studies and polls have shown a general decline in the faith of each generation in the democratic process. Moreover, the Open Society Foundation found that, while overall people generally preferred democracy, 42% of young people would support a military dictatorship, and 35%...
Where is this?
felt that an autocrat who did not consult the democratic process might work. From whence does this lack of faith in democracy originate?
That's kind of concerning. What did he say? Global poll. It's a global poll. And so is that down now? People used to... Like, I imagine in the 60s, there were lots of people who believed in democracy hardcore. So I guess it's gone down a lot since then, probably.
It can't be from a lack of pro-democracy propaganda from within the democracies themselves, and any external influence is heavily curtailed by the powers that be. Every day, we are constantly told that democracy and human rights are the most important things in the world, and that everything the left doesn't like is an existential threat to our precious democracy.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
So the answer must come from something internal to democracy itself. And it seems evident that Western democracies are actually not very responsive to the desires of their...
It's funny, like, at least the more left-wing news sources actually seem to care about democracy. Because the right-wing news sources are all praising Vladimir Putin and stuff.
their electorates. When polled by Pew Research, people explain that simply democracy doesn't seem to function as they expected. Overall, most people around the world are dissatisfied with democracy, with 61% of people believing that elected representatives do not care about the public. 38% agree with the statement that no matter who wins the election, things do not change very much. And in the US and the UK, 2/3 of people think...
I mean, in my experience, I have lived through a bunch of different elections, and I haven't really noticed very much change to my personal life at all.
Politicians don't care about them at all. And this is not new. In a 2014 study from Princeton University, they came to the conclusion that the United States was just an oligarchy, not a democracy. As Vox magazine summarizes it, basically, average citizens only get what they want if economic elites or interest groups also want it. If fewer than 20% of wealthy Americans supported a policy change, it only happened about 18% of the time. But when 80% of them were in support, the change ended up happening 45% of the time. There's no similar effect for average Americans. Historically, it is out of unrepresentative and disorderly oligarchies that Caesarean figures tend to arise. When the state has gotten away from the people's interests and is in hock to an unaccountable faction, whether it is the centralized power in the oligarchy and disenfranchisement of the plebs which caused the downfall of the Roman Republic, or the madcap seizure of power by an ideological cabal, as happened with revolutionary France, it seems that a certain set of conditions needs to be present. On the Future Dispensation by Charles Hayward, in which he lays out requirements for a Caesar. First, societal instability that creates disruption and chaos, leading to an undesirable situation for many people. Most commonly, this is the inability to feed one's children. It can also be oppression of some kind that leads to a spiral of violence, or a catastrophic regime failure, such as accidentally forcing some kind of poison on the population through greed and incompetence. Second, the desire of a significant number of ordinary people to improve their situation. Third, a belief of those people that regime change will improve their situation. Fourth, the emergence of a ruthless, more or less sociopathic leader who desires to take personal advantage of this situation. It seems that the United States does fulfill all of those criteria except the last. No matter what the left say about him, Donald Trump is obviously not a ruthless Machiavellian sociopath, which is evidenced in the fact that his children obviously love him. Recently, this photo...
The fuck? How is that evidence of that at all? I mean, he's not Machiavellian. Ruthless sociopath, I'm not really sure. But I don't think he's smart enough to call him Machiavellian. And I don't really see him as a Caesar. But maybe that's short-sighted of me.
Of Baron Trump, Trump's youngest son, went viral on the internet, with many in the online right noticing that he does indeed look as though he could have been captured in portrait on a Roman coin. Baron was also revealed to be interested in politics, apparently giving his father advice on what he ought to do, and was offered a position as a Republican delegate in Florida, though he turned this down due to prior commitments. However, it seems that to many, although he's only 18,
is he really
he
making the
well
argument
be
that
future Caesar figure that they are
Baron
anticipating.
Trump is the Caesar?
After all, the parallels of the conditions that led to the emergence of Julius Caesar and Baron Trump are not so dissimilar. Both were raised in a tempestuous and strongly divided political environment, while figures close to them were openly persecuted by their enemies. The laws are applied selectively, with
That's
favour
kind of
and
interesting.
prejudice, revealing stark cracks within a republic that is coming apart at the seams. There are, of course, fewer prescriptions in the unravelling of the modern American republic, but the treatment of the January 6 protesters shows us that it is only the magnitude and severity that is different, and not the underlying ethos. As such, many are looking on excitedly at the prospect and seem to wish to meme Baron Trump into such position. I would caution against this. Not only am I not a proponent of Caesarism, but I also believe it is not appropriate to attempt to influence Baron in this direction. As Hayward put it in his article, this is not to say that Caesar is necessarily inevitable, or if he is inevitable,
Who's Aiden
imminent,
Ross?
nor can our future be precisely derived from studying the past. What happened in the time of Julius Caesar or at other historical moments shows us tendencies, not prophecies. But it does seem likely, because it is the Gordian knot solution. The rise of a Caesar is not merely the transfer of existing structures of power to new leadership. Caesarism is the creation of wholly new structures of power, along with the substantial transformation of surviving structures of power, often following a great deal of precursor violence, and is itself frequently involving much violence. It also casts a shadow across Baron Trump himself. As Hayward pointed out, the Caesar figure is ruthless and uncaring. I don't know anything about Baron Trump, but I wouldn't want to say any such thing about any young person, especially one who has such large shoes to fill. If,
Nah, man.
when,
I would say that about like every little kid, man. They're all ruthless and uncaring bastards, except for there's some good ones, but most of them suck.
an American Caesar were to emerge, he would be the product of a confluence of forces and
Andrew
events
Tate
that are outside
acolyte,
the control
famous
of
for
any one
sniffing
person or
Tate's
faction.
chair. Wow.
It also
Also
would require
notoriously
a man who is not only
illiterate
ruthless,
streamer.
but clever, capable, and at heart a political animal who can grapple with the realities of the circumstances in which he finds himself. He must have experience and connections to his name, and his goals must be to reshape the nature of the political environment itself. As Hayward put it would be a new dispensation. Such a thing will likely come, but the magnitude of the undertaking puts it beyond the power of us mere mortals to shape. It is the product of dramatic forces which take hold of the spirit of the times and push them along on their own path. But that is not to say that it's not understandable why people would want such a thing. The political process in America has become uncooperative and calcified into two obstinate camps. It seems that no good will come in the near future. But I will reaffirm my commitment to the democratic process at this point and remind you that things are always darkest before the dawn. From an online perspective, it is frustrating to watch events play out with no apparent movement. But politics is glacial.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, he's even commenting on the fact that there's this whole right-wing Caesarist movement trying to get Baron Trump, trying to meme Baron Trump into power. But then he'll, complain about how the mainstream media is exaggerating. They're exaggerating when they say everything they don't like is a threat to democracy. But it's not like they're saying everything they don't like is a threat to democracy. It's really just the stuff like this that, I mean, when there's stuff like this out there, when there's a bunch of right-wingers trying to create a Caesar out of Barron Trump, I mean, it's fair to bring that up, I think.
Nothing happens for a long time, then everything happens all at once. With all this being said, it certainly isn't impossible that such a thing might happen, and even within our lifetimes. The Democrat media certainly believes it's a possibility, and if they keep saying it often enough, perhaps they will have done their part to lay the groundwork for a future American empire. In the event of such a thing, it is important to remember that it will be the obstinance of the political class and a refusal to accept change in the necessary direction that people desire that will be the real root of the problem. A Caesar requires popular support against the elite class, and the best way to prevent a Caesar is simply to give ground on certain issues to ensure that people feel that democracy actually serves their interests. Where Caesar gains his power from the dispossessed public, they in turn gain indirect access to power in the form of a champion who will, ostensibly at least, do something that is in their interests. As Plutarch noted in his Life of Lycurgus, political rigidity leads to revolution. He compares the flexible and accommodating Spartan system in opposition to the unyielding kings of Mycenae and Argos, and tells us that who, by maintaining their prerogative too strictly for want of yielding a little to the populace, lost it all. The less people feel invested in their own political system, the more imminent a Caesar becomes. The American aristocracy also needs to understand that they cannot have it all their own way, and if they do, they don't just make an American Caesar possible, they make him desirable. There is a great...
Okay. I guess there was a sponsor at the end of that video, so it automatically went to the next one. Trump was on his stream at Barron's urging. Wow. Aiden Ross, huh? So Paul's ego is back on Drunken Peasants for the first time in how many years now? 8.5 years. No, less than that. 6.5 years. 6.5 years since he was last on Drunken Peasants. He's back tonight as I am streaming with Billy the Fridge. So that's pretty cool. I want a full Drunken Peasants reunion. Get TJ, get Scotty, Ben and Paul are gonna get you high. We're all stars now. In the post show, we're all stars now. In the post show. So, there's this video I've had on the playlist for a while, but it's so long. And I'm... no.
The other one I had him.
And I'm scared of watching it. Because, like, what the hell? It's literally, like, analyzing every single moment in the show. I don't think I can do it. But I am curious. I am molto curioso. I'm going to go back to this one. The purpose of lore and canon. There's a
great deal of controversy surrounding the connected concepts of lore and canon. what is and is not canon, why internal consistency in the law is important, and whether we even need canon at all. Perhaps we could say that everything or nothing is canon and still get the same effect. There is actually a solid body of thought behind the importance of consistency in art, which answers many of these questions. Plato, the original
I wonder what is
rationalist,
leading him to make
wanted
this
to
video.
ban art and poetry from his perfect republic because it only spoke to the lower reaches of the soul and did not stimulate the higher rational faculties. Aristotle took a much more sophisticated approach towards art and storytelling, and in his Poetics laid out the philosophical groundwork for understanding the purpose of art and storytelling.
I mean, you gotta understand that back in these days, they didn't have movies, they didn't have novels, they didn't have, like, actual good music. They had, like just basic melodies. The art was okay, but it was expensive. And it was kind of ostentatious if you had it. So I can kind of understand at this time in history being like, yeah, we don't need creativity and expression and art and stuff. We don't need storytelling. I can kind of see this being like a plausible mindset at the time, you know, just focus on what matters.
And these rules seem to be relatively timeless, as they still
From a
hold
modern
to
perspective,
this
it seems
day.
crazy, though.
Aristotle persuasively argues that the purpose of storytelling is to construct a representation of reality. In this representation, we establish premises which dictate logically the events that can happen, allowing us to explore aspects of the human experience without having to actually go through them ourselves. Aristotle thought that imitation was intrinsically pleasurable, and was the mechanism by which we learn, and so fiction is at once entertainment, but also a valuable part of our moral and practical education. What this means is that the premises upon...
I'm really curious, where does the whole LGBT flag with the Lord of the Rings thing come in? When is he going to make it political?
on which a fictional universe is grounded have to be logically coherent and self-reinforcing with their own internal consistency to create what Samuel Taylor Coleridge called the willing suspension of disbelief. That is, the ability for a person
is
to
that the
put
guy who
aside the
invented that?
rational knowledge that they are, in fact, engaging in a kind of make-believe and take the fictional universe seriously in order to get the most out of it. If we can suspend our disbelief when engaging with a piece of art, we can, in a way, lose ourselves properly in it and fully enjoy the experience, whilst understanding those intricate details that can only be opened up when one allows oneself to move into the piece and become a part
Harry
of the
Potter
journey that it invites the audience.
is a great example of lore that just doesn't make sense. Like, man, like nothing makes sense in Harry Potter. It's just totally... It might as well be freaking Alice in Wonderland for how little logic there is in that world. And the seventh book is so convoluted. And I can't even remember, like, how everything fits together, like how he survived in the end, how Voldemort died and he survived somehow, and like it was even the movie can't even explain it. The movie can't even explain how any of it fits together. So if you just watch the movie, you're going to be really confused, and if you can't remember the book very well, like me, you're still going to be confused.
Audience to take. Austrian art historian Ernst Gombrich was of the opinion that art was able to create a kind of illusion in which we deliberately engage, to surround and subsume our imaginations into the small universe created by the author's intentions and following the rules that they laid out. In effect, This casts a kind of magic spell which enchants the viewer into leaving their workaday life and allows them to step into this new world, which follows unusual rules and opens up avenues of thought and experience that would otherwise remain elusive or inaccessible. These illusions are not delusions either. We are fully conscious that we are choosing to engage in a fiction, and this engagement lasts only for as long as we allow it.
Okay, here's my theory. I think Sargon only put that LGBT flag in the Palantir. I think he only did that to get views, because he knew that his audience wouldn't click on this video unless there was something political, something anti-gay in it. He just like stuck that in there to get views. Because I understand Saruman being there, because it's about lore and canon, and of course Lord of the Rings has a lot of lore. But like, where's the political angle here? So far, I don't see it.
We can decide to disengage from it at any time of our own volition. A fictional universe is assumed to follow its own rules consistently, and it is a bad fictional universe that doesn't. In order to draw us in and create a sense of verisimilitude, it has to look, sound, and generally feel enough like the real thing to fool our minds into thinking that we might actually be experiencing what the art is trying to persuade us of. This is probably why when you're watching a movie and the audio track is not properly synced to the video, that it looks so jarring and unwatchable. Dutch historian
that's
Johan
really annoying.
Huizinga observes in his book Homo Ludens that these kinds of
Homo
shared
Ludens?
illusions with which we engage are a fundamental part of human socialization. Games begin
I'd
from
like
a
to
very
see
similar
some
premise
Homo
as other forms
Ludens.
of art. They establish a set of rules which are in some way meant to represent a reality, and then follow their own internal logic to come to anticipated conclusions which allow us to lose ourselves within their worlds, until the game is over. The game, as with any other kind of art which we might share with others, begins in a kind of social contract, in which all participants agree to the premises before beginning.
Dude, this is bringing us back, because Sargon is actually, believe it or not, a nerd. And back in the old days, he used to make a lot more kind of content that sort of commented on nerd culture. He was more of a gamer, more of a sort of gaming history buff in a way. And this whole roleplay game thing, that's got to be him getting in touch with his past.
Beginning, and deliberately dispose of the expectation that the internal
He's since become so pretentious.
workings of the game will be the same as in real life, to create this kind of micro-universe that follows its own rules
The man
and
that
sets
plays.
the nature of our expectations. When we submit to the illusion of a piece of art or a game or a movie or whatever, we have to concentrate on it and allow ourselves to be taken in by its framing and guide our thoughts until the experience ends. Huizinga points out that someone who goes out of their way to bring something inappropriate from outside of the frame is deliberately intruding upon this shared experience and takes on the position of a spoilsport whose disbelief breaks the illusion. Obviously, one can't...
Wow, he's really stretching this political angle, isn't he? I can't make a video just about lore and canon because nobody will watch it. I gotta make it political somehow.
Enjoy a shared illusion with someone who is going out of their way to be a spoilsport. We must all agree to the nature of the illusion before we can engage in it together, and if someone attempts to intrude upon the framing with something that is inappropriate and tied to the real world, then they ruin the experience for everyone. We can see then how this relates to modern issues of law and canon. We can see how these principles inform what needs to be considered. The law of a fictional setting is the internal history of that setting, in which fictional events tie the universe together and create the premises from which the internal logic of the universe will operate. It is important that these things display internal consistency for our ability to buy into the illusion of the universe. If things don't make sense,
He's probably
going to
start complaining about
then we
injecting
simply
politics
cannot
into story.
suspend our disbelief to enter into the experience. Canon is that body of texts from which the law is drawn.
This is a very
Those
dry
things which are canonical
recitation.
must themselves follow certain rules. They must themselves.
But Sargon
create
has always
premises
had a kind of
which are
dry
not in
style.
contradiction to established canonical texts.
Although, man,
and must not intrude on law which has.
when was the last time you heard Sargon of Akkad laugh in a video? Because that was one of my favorite things about his old videos, is that he would laugh all the time in these videos. He had so much fun making them. Now it just seems like he's like they're just fucking boring. Like he's just reading the script and having no fun with it. It's totally serious. It has to be like really intellectual. I can't even remember the last time I heard Sargon laugh. I think he laughs a little bit more when he's on camera, maybe because he's not reading from a script so much. He's sort of improving.
Has already been established and upon which further logical steps are grounded. If the law of a setting establishes that A leads to B, which as a consequence creates C, a text which purports to be canonical that erases premises A or B but seeks to maintain C would be problematic and would cause internal inconsistency. For this reason, what is and is not canon should be carefully considered. The law must make sense on its own terms, and the presuppositions which underpin it should flow naturally from what has already been established. The reason that we can accept dragons, elves, and talking trees in Lord of the Rings is because Tolkien's world has established that the kind of magic required to create these things exists and has been operating for thousands of years. But we indeed are too bigoted to accept a 2021 BMW 5 Series 530i with optional seated heating because it would destroy the logical consistency of the original premises of Middle-earth. I'm sure you can see where I'm going with all of this. Modern politics has no place in a fantasy or science fiction universe.
Bro, yeah, as a dad, he should be even funnier. Because dads are always cracking jokes, right? He should be laughing even more. What gives? Dude, that's it, dude. He had his first kid back in 2015. I remember that. Bro, it was because he had the kid that he just slowly became this. This is what being a father turns you into. Just a total piece of shit. And by the way, now he's getting into the political angle. So now he's like, modern politics should not be... Let me hear him say that again.
We indeed are to destroy the logical consistency of the original premises of Middle-earth. I'm sure you can see where I'm going with all of this. Modern politics has no place in a fantasy or science fiction universe.
It depends, I think. It depends on if it's integrated well enough that it has a sort of logical consistency and has a lore that justifies its existence. But generally, I think when making a fantasy or science fiction universe, you should endeavor to make something that has consistency and has explanations and has a reason to exist, and make that a priority over having modern politics in it. And if you're gonna do a modern politics thing, it would probably help to sort of make it allegorical and therefore devote a lot of the space of the storytelling to that.
Anything of that sort is an intrusion on the established law and canon,
Yeah,
which is
you
done for
called it,
reasons
Carl.
external to the logic of the setting itself, and done, therefore, for reasons other than the good of the art itself. It doesn't matter whether you think you can find a law-appropriate reason to insert the external politics into the setting or not. It doesn't matter if you...
But what is he talking about? Just black people to insert? Are black people external politics? Is the existence of a black person totally political? I don't know what specifically he's referring to, because I'm not a nerd, so I don't know what this stupid shit is. You geeks and losers could probably tell me what this fucking weird ass, like, overly dressed... This is the thing, man. I just can't get into this kind of shit. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why all these, like, video games and gadget whiz bops don't... I'll tell you why I hate them. Look at this armor. At what point in history has armor this gigantic and uncomfortable and impractical ever been used? I'm just sick of seeing these, like, exaggerated... It's like when you're looking at some, like, fan art or hentai or whatever, and they got these giant proportions that, like, these fucking Rule 34 bitches, they got these, like, giant titties when, like, the actual character doesn't. It's like they're just exaggerating this shit beyond belief. It's like, and the weapons that they carry, man. Like, in all these video games, I swear, they have enormous weapons. And it just takes me out of it, man. And that's what he should be complaining. It's like the lack of lore and sense and just believability, suspension of disbelief that comes to the giant weapons and the giant armor and just the unrealistic... I just wish that, realism mattered a little bit more. Because that's a little bit more immersive. I think that's supposed to be Warhammer 40k or some shit. Never cared for it. Okay, so it's a tabletop game. Yeah, because Warhammer 40... It's like a war game, right? It's like the D&D of war games, where you have, like, all these pieces and stuff. Pieces that you gotta buy separately. It's not just like a board game that comes in a box. It's like you build up your board game or whatever. The Japanese RPGs where the characters have giant swords. Yeah, I know. It's the JRPG thing. Like, I just, like, all of that just looks... It, to me, in my eyes, it just looks so childish because it takes itself so seriously. Like, I could get behind maybe stuff that is trying to be funny or not being like such a bad... It's like they think they're so badass. Meanwhile, they look like ridiculous clowns. Like, look at this person. Look at how ridiculous this person looks. In this crazy brass armor with jewels for some reason. Yeah. But I don't know. Sargon's probably upset at it because it's a woman or something. I don't know.
Simply declare inappropriate texts as canon. It is far too late for all of that, because it was simply in the attempt itself in which the illusion of the fictional universe was broken, and you revealed yourself to be the spoilsport. Moreover, you did this for your own selfish reasons. You decided that you mattered more than the people who were already engaged in the shared behavior which created the fictional universe in which you presumably wanted to participate. Don't worry though, you are finally visible. We do, indeed, see you. And we know the kind of people that you are. Nobody is pleased that you're doing this, and everyone knows that you are just a distraction from the reason that we are all here. You aren't...
I wish that he had put more effort into this video, because this is like a 10-minute video, man. This should have been a 30-minute video, and he should have gone into examples. He should have pulled articles, like done like a classic Sargon takedown of this topic. This was pretty lazy, because it was so vague, and it was like he does that thing where he's just speaking to this sort of vaguely unspecified group of people that he's supposed to be referring to, and he's like, we know who you are, we know what you're doing, and we don't like it. And it's like, I wish that maybe he would explain a little bit more, you know, give me something to work off, give me something to riff on, you know. Yeah, I mean, these Sargon videos, they're not great, are they? They had some, like, these titles are kind of interesting. These thumbnails, they make you want to click, and then you get into the video and it's just sometimes he's making a decent point, sometimes he's just being boring, sometimes there's something to comment on. What was the one we saw before? The good one that we saw, the reason I pulled all these videos is this death is a moral necessity. This one was great. I had so much to say about this one. Wow, okay, he uploaded a day ago, and he has the Sheriff of Nottingham and Friar Tuck. Interesting. Dark days ahead. I'm kind of curious about this one.
Things are going pretty badly in England at the moment. We are a country occupied by a technically valid but spiritually alien government. And boy does it show. Starmer's Labour Party won their landslide in a year of phenomenally low voter turnout. Only 60% of the entire electorate voted, the second lowest in a UK election since 1885. Only 2001 was lower, with 59%. Starmer only won 34% of this 60% of the turnout. This means that Starmer's reign hangs on a mere 20% of the entire electorate. And of the so-called popular vote, Labour received a devastatingly low 9.7 million.
And whose fault is this? I can tell you whose fault it is, but you're not going to like it. It's all those fucking Brit bongers. Here's why. They had the option to install a new voting system and get rid of first past the post, and they didn't. They decided not to. They voted against it. So this is what you get. This is what you get. Oh, what? You want to complain about it now? Well, should have campaigned harder for that voting change, because there's a reason that people were trying to push that years and years ago.
Out of the 48 million registered voters, which is 500,000 votes fewer than Jeremy Corbyn won in 2019. In 2024, it wasn't that Labour won, it's that the Conservatives lost. The collapse of their vote delivered up to Starmer his 412-seat government. And this complete lack of legitimacy shows, as we are less than a month into the Starmer regime, and things are, I suppose we could generously say, chaotic. At the time of recording, there have been constant riots after a second-generation Rwandan immigrant murdered 3 children at a dance school in what appears to be a targeted attack in the sleepy English town of Southport. The pain and outrage of this brought forth a well of feeling that has been bubbling under the surface for a long time. The pervasive feeling that mass immigration is making England unsafe. One predominant aspect of this is from Islamic immigration, as for decades now, the English have suffered from social conflict, widespread grooming gangs, and repeated terror attacks from an unchecked minority of this community. After putting an end to the disorder, instead of attempting to empathise with and mollify the English, who have never voted for immigration, but have persistently voted for parties who promise to reduce immigration, Starmer has acted like an angry tyrant who is enraged by this uppity underclass and has set himself firmly against the people who have been traumatised by this event. He declared the people who are concerned about this far right, which in liberal parlance means evil, beyond the pale, or unworthy of moral consideration. He then declared that he would prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah, it's just... I've talked about this when I covered Tick History's video. It's... It's not a good move. It's not a good look. It's not a good look for this guy. This guy should not be the Labour Party leader. I'm serious. So just from that situation alone and how he handled, because it's just never a good look to villainize the people who are rioting because they're upset about children getting murdered. And there's like this sort of social groundswell about it. Especially when they represent the sort of, what would you call it? The majority, not the minority. They're not a minority group. So they represent like the majority ethnicity of the country, the traditional ethnicity of the country. I think you can get away with it if you criticize a minority. Like the people who criticize the Black Lives Matter riots, I think they could get away with it more. Not saying that, I mean, I think it's fair to criticize any riots. It's just not a good look as a politician. I'm talking like strategy here. Not like, is this a good idea? Is this like, is he correct or incorrect? Because I think Starmer is probably pretty correct in what he's saying. It's just bad politics. I think you could get away with it as a politician criticizing the Black Lives Matter rioters a lot more than this guy basically, because how this reads to these Southport white people who are rioting, and I guess Indians too, Sikhs. There's quite a few of those, as Tick was very quick to point out. But how it looks is like the government is taking the side of minorities over the traditional ethnic group of the country. So it's probably a bad move. Yeah, bad optics. Not playing the game well. But yeah, it's I don't know. I wish that people like Sargon or Tick History or these right wing people would maybe like have a little bit more like be a little bit more critical of the right and have a little bit more sympathy for people on the left, but it seems like they're just very unwilling to bend at all. And so it's this very stubborn mentality that leads them to, make videos like this where, sure, I mean, fair enough, criticize these people like Keir Starmer, but like also like have some perspective about what's going on here. This isn't a case of the government like trying to attack the English and replace them with minorities. It's just kind of seems that way because of this bad optics.
Starmer's machine man delivery of the statement essentially rendered the concerned parents of this country enemies of the state, and he conversely committed to protecting mosques, showing that the Muslim community were in fact his favoured clients in this dispute. This, of course, did nothing to calm tempers, and riots continued over the weekend in outrage towards what appeared to be Starmer's partiality towards foreign communities against the legitimate concerns of the English community, which Starmer's messaging implied was illegitimate and racist.
Because let's be very clear about this. It's not protest. It's not legitimate. It's crime.
In response to these riots, Starmer made another statement in which he reiterated his threats against the English community, that they would feel the full force of the law and would be hunted down, and meanwhile his Labour government would commit £30 million.
Yeah, I mean, when you have like a big groundswell like this, where people just are fed up and they start lashing out, it's just at that point you have to accept, okay, yeah, we're against what these people are doing, and it is crime, and we should fight back against it, but when I get on this stage and talk about it, villainizing them is not how I'm going to get everything back to normal, because those are the normal people. So villainizing the normal people is the wrong way to make them start acting normal again.
Pounds of your money to state protection of mosques. In his exact words,
I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online.
To some degree, like, as a politician, I think you have to treat it like the weather. So, like, riots are like a really bad hurricane. And so you have to work with the weather instead of trying to shame the weather to stop blowing hurricanes, stop blowing your winds at us. I think you have to be a little bit more tactical about it. You have to be like, okay, how do we get these people safe? How do we get people to evacuate? You know? And I guess the politics version of that would be, how do we get these people to fucking calm down? That should be number one priority for him. To calm down without feeling like the government is shutting them down. Which I guess is difficult. It's not an easy situation, but I think this is the wrong way to go about it.
And then running away themselves.
Starmer was clearly incensed, and appears to have decided to take these outpourings of grief as a personal attack on himself.
But I think you gotta give a little, you know. It's like, yes, come down with the police, but also be like, we've heard your complaints, and we are now reviewing the migrant situation and the knife crime situation and blah, blah, blah. Like, have some reassurance that, like, these protests are actual protests and they're being heard.
His government and his entire
it's carrot and
moral
stick,
system.
but he's forgetting the carrot.
If this was allowed to stand, then all of liberalism becomes invalid, I suppose. And so, Starmer has taken the most hardline actions he can. Concurrent to this, the Muslim community, understandably afraid for the integrity of their mosques and emboldened by Starmer's support, fielded what has been termed the MDL, the Muslim Defense League, This took the form of large numbers of armed, black-clad, Palestine-waving pseudo-paramilitaries who took to the streets to hunt down
That is
English lads and
insane.
beat them senseless.
Dude,
Guys, obviously coming over to the pub.
this is
Showing
insane.
dominance over everybody, you know what I mean?
Bro.
Videos from Middlesbrough.
Oh my god, we have literal Arab terrorists roaming the streets of England. This is not good. We have gangs of Muslim terrorists terrorizing the community in England. This is a really bad situation. Holy shit. Like, when it was just the white people with a few Sikhs revolting, then it was like, okay, this is bad, but at least it's, you know, at least there's no signs of that it's going to escalate from here. But oh no, this is a huge escalation of the problem. Now we got them fighting back. We have them fighting back, and they're fighting back hard. Yikes. This is a disaster. This feels like it's just going to get worse.
Birmingham and elsewhere emerged on social media, which showed these Muslim gangs arbitrarily beating Englishmen in the street.
This is
The
basically
police were absent
a race
from
war.
these riots, and the government did not acknowledge them. Needless to say, this
Like, people talk about race war, but this is pretty much a race war going on in England right now. This is bad.
reinforced people's belief that there is a two-tier system of government and policing in this country, where the state has chosen protected client groups to receive different treatment to the majority native population. Starmer and his government denied that there was a two-tier system of policing in England, but the reality is right in front of our eyes.
There's no two-tier policing. There is policing without fear or favour.
We can see what they do and how they have behaved in the face of potential
Every
and
action
actual
has an
violence
equal
in the
and
past.
opposite reaction. Yeah, and so the whole violence thing doesn't sit well with me, because it feels like you're just encouraging people to be more violent and to continue the violence when you do that, and you're just making it harder to stop the violence. So just all of this stuff, it just feels like, well, of course, when you start terrorizing mosques, they're going to start terrorizing you back. But when does it stop? It's just getting out of control now.
Be it at the Batley Grammar School protest, the pro-Palestine protest, or the Black Lives Matter riots. We can see that they are afraid of these communities, and so treat them with a light touch. The English riots continued this week, and Starmer called another Cobra meeting. The result of this meeting was a third statement, in which he tripled down on his aggressive posturing, describing the police as a standing army.
See, this is such a weird thing. Like, if this narrative is true, if this two-tiered policing narrative is true, which I'm not really sure if it is or isn't. People have talked about it a lot for many years now, and I've heard about it many times. Isn't that a weird situation? Like, why would they be so afraid of just cracking the whip, just laying in and bringing the hammer down on these Muslim communities that are full of crime? Like, why would they be afraid of it? Like, what are they even afraid of? Like, who would be angry about that? That's the weird thing. Is like, I'm almost at the point where I'm like, this can't be true, because I just don't understand what would make them afraid of just going after the criminals. Because it's like, who the fuck is going to think they're racist for doing that? In England. I mean, maybe some really, like, out of touch city dwellers. But I feel like most people would be like, yeah, it makes sense. Crack down on crime where it is like this. I just don't get why they wouldn't do that.
Against the English rioters, though he did decline to call them far right this time.
We'll have a standing army of specialist officers, public duty officers, so that we'll have enough officers to deal with this where we need them.
At this point, it seemed that the energy and outrage had all but petered out. The riots had become sporadic, the protests far less frequent. So it came as a bit of a surprise to hear that on the morning of Wednesday the 7th of August, it was announced that we should expect 30 or more far-right riots that evening. This was something of a surprise because there appeared to be no chatter in the grassroots networks about it. Nobody seemed to be aware of further protests. Nobody knew who was organising any protests. We had only learned about this from the mainstream media. Then it was announced again by the media that in fact we ought to expect 100 new far-right demonstrations across the country. Again, everyone wondered where this was coming from. But the media even provided us a handy map to let us know where the far-right would be protesting.
Okay.
We were to expect far-right protests in some of the most left-wing and diverse areas of the country. How odd. Evening came and these far-right protests actually failed to materialise. It seems, though, that quite a large number of the left-wing coalition did turn out onto the streets, though. Leftist renter mobs, Muslim community leaders armed with swords, and the urban inner-city youth who didn't really know why they were out on the streets but clearly understood that the media was giving them directions of some kind. The far-right almost entirely failed to turn out.
So,
and in the absence...
basically the media created a left-wing protest by saying that there would be a right-wing protest, so a bunch of counter-protesters came out there, and then there was nobody for them to counter-protest against, so it just became a regular left-wing protest. Weird. This is bizarre. This is really just some strange psyop thing going on in England. I don't know how to even explain this. This stuff is getting beyond me, man.
Of an actual enemy to fight, the diverse youth of Croydon decided to attack the police and smash the place up.
So confused. Why are they trashing the place? This is the only place.
Oh God.
In England today I've seen getting
what a nightmare.
What is going on?
To hammer home that this...
God, and it seems like the media just created that out of nothing. Wow. This is... yeah. I can see why this is titled Dark Days Ahead, because I feel nothing but dread watching this video.
This is a two-tier system of policing. The Metropolitan Police did make sure to publish a statement informing everyone that this was actually nothing...
I feel like there's something psychologically wrong with England. There's just something fundamentally broken about their psychology at this point, because it feels different from America. Like, with America, this stuff feels like, yeah, we've been dealing with this since the Civil War. It just feels like an evolution out of that. It feels very comfortable and natural for us. With England, it just feels like they're going topsy-turvy and just careening into a frickin' like the space between and like they're careening into the space between the freeway and the exit ramp because they have no fucking clue what they're doing. Oh, yeah, this is weird.
To do with the counter-protests, and it was just, quote, pure antisocial behaviour, which apparently is just completely normal, and we shouldn't worry about it. Guardian journos took to the streets, excitedly filming the large gathering of the globalists' clients, and everyone seems to have gone home before sunset. One man who apparently went to one of the demonstrations demanded that the throats of his enemies be slit.
They are disgusting, nasty bastards, and we need to cut their throats and get rid of them all.
He is apparently a Labour councillor, and I assume that he's angling for a promotion. But before the evening was even over, we were already being treated to the next day's newspaper headlines. all of the major papers ran what were essentially the same headline, with exactly the same picture to deliver the same message. Britain was united against...
God, where is the effort to calm shit down? I swear, like, not even Sargon seems to... Not even Sargon seems interested. Like, where's the effort to just be like, guys, cool it. Can we just take a breather? Just, all right, we got our aggression out. Just, like, I feel like with situations like this, people just keep wanting to get angrier and angrier and angrier. And it's like every time you do it, it just gets worse. Like, the getting angry just makes the problem worse. And I'm just sitting here like, guys, if you knew what was best for you, you just want to, like, hands off for a second so that we can, like, get back to equilibrium. And then, but I guess it's just, I guess they want the fight now. I guess that's what it is. When stuff like this happens, they're tired of just waiting around, you know, hoping that their politicians will solve these problems for them. And they're just angry, and they want to start punching each other. But I just feel like all of this, it's such a self-fulfilling prophecy, these sorts of things.
Against the far right. From the Daily Express to the Daily Mail to the Times, they all joined The Guardian in agreeing that anti-hate marchers faced down the evil far right. Naturally, this had the stink of government coordination about it.
When you get right down to it, I think most of these people have way more in common with each other than they think. And that's what's so just frustrating about it. They're doing this for no reason.
About it. And that fact was simply admitted by Hope Not Hate's Nick Lowles when he posted, quote, "Yes, the list was a hoax, but just look at the front pages of today's papers. An anti-racist message is being transmitted to millions of homes this morning."
Oh, what a fucking joke, dude. Are you kidding me? That's your takeaway? That, like, oh, this is some publicity stunt for anti-racism? No, this is the reaction to the horror that's been unleashed by the right as a response to that stabbing. This is the reaction to that. This is the escalation of that crisis, making it even worse. Because this is not a message of anti-racism. This is a message of hatred against people who are perceived as racist. That's all I'm seeing here. This is spooky, man. This guy is so out of touch.
This, I believe, is the result of Starmer's third Cobra meeting, where someone has clearly given him a dressing down and told him to use the subversive means available to get a grip on all of this. Starmer even made it sound like the evening's protests were actually his idea in the first place.
Yes, last night was much better than was expected, but we are not going to give up on our efforts here. That's why it's very important that I continue my discussions, coordinating with law enforcement, with police leaders, to make sure we've got the right officers in the right place, to keep pushing on the criminal justice response. I was very keen that we're able to demonstrate that if you're involved in disorder, within days you'll be in the criminal justice system, and some people starting long terms of imprisonment. That needs to continue, and so that is my sole focus.
The globalist liberals are currently posting all over Twitter to thank goodness that this is all over. Britain has come together again, and everything is fine.
I mean, that Keir Starmer clip did not imply that he was involved in organizing these protests. I'm pretty sure that's what Sargon was setting it up as, if I remember correctly. Maybe it wasn't.
But who exactly did come together? The Muslim community, who came out to chant the communists, who came out to chant
"We are
Muslims and we're Jews and we're gay. We are black, white, Muslims and we're Jews and we're gay. We are black, white,
God, this is cringe.
black, white.
This, yeah. And of course, I just feel like oh God, like I'm running out of thoughts. I have thoughts, but it's hard to express them. Because a situation like this is just so complicated and touchy. That's what Sargon was implying, yeah. I don't know why. God, it's just so much dishonesty from Sargon these days. So much dishonesty from all of these people. And just the rank bias. Like, he's clearly picked a side in this conflict. And then he's just supporting his side. And it doesn't seem like it seems like he'd rather put the interest of his side over the interest of England as a whole. Which is really short-sighted, I think. Because he makes... And Tick is the same way, that they make no effort at all to extend any kind of goodwill or understanding to the other side. The most we've seen Sargon do is say that the Muslims were right to be afraid that their mosques were at risk. But if he thinks that, then it's weird that in every other way he's so on the side of the people who are attacking the mosques. Like, where is the condemnation of that? Where is Sargon coming out and saying that he's against that? He can say that he's against these cringy, weird, punk, queer, black protests. He can say he's against that all day. But it seems like he's never... These people just never want to actually condemn rioting in general, and at least Keir Starmer seems to be doing that, although, again, there's that whole two-tiered policing thing, which may or may not be true. It's just a lot of people talking past each other. Like, where's the effort to, like, understand each other here? I'm losing my mind in this situation. And of course we have a lot of that in the US, but it just seems like people are way more lost in the UK. Like, they don't even know what the point of anything they're doing is anymore. Well, that's about it for this stream. We went for an hour and 43 minutes. It was nice to get on here. I put out that video on AI today. I think it turned out a very good video. I really enjoyed making it. It took me like 2 days to make that thing. It went really quickly. And I also edited that Marilyn Manson reaction. I re-edited on YouTube's editor to... well, actually, I didn't even have to use YouTube's editor. YouTube has like an automatic editor that it uses when you have a copyright problem. And dude, I was surprised because it didn't just well, from the preview I saw, I haven't actually watched the video since it's been put back because it was blocked. That's why I had to do that. But from the preview I saw, I was surprised that they actually managed. I was talking over the song in that video, and they managed to isolate my voice and just remove the song, so you can still hear my voice totally clear, totally loud and clear, but the song is just not there. So I imagine what they did is they probably somehow the tracks that I had on Premiere, they were able to access the multiple audio tracks, and they just muted the song audio track, and they just kept my microphone from my camera, which is pretty cool. It means as far as I know, like I said, I didn't go back and review the thing after it's been put back up, but as far as I know, we didn't lose anything of my commentary on that. So that's good. And I'm glad that you liked the new video, Carl. But that's all. See you later. The song got removed, yeah. But you can still see the video. The video's back up.